And if blood pools, we all know that can cause a blood clot. I suppose about 20% of people can expect to have AF during their lifetimes, and gets taken over by a chaotic rhythm coming really from the left atrium of the heart.
It's another one of these scary things. So I guess the first question is, what is it? So I think most people have heard the term atrial fibrillation. It's another one of these scary things. So I guess the first question is, what is it? What is going wrong?
Yeah, sure. So atrial fibrillation refers to, it's an irregular heartbeat, and that's coming from the top chambers of the heart. So actually what happens is the normal coordinated beating from the top chamber gets taken over by a chaotic rhythm coming really from the left atrium of the heart. It's what I spend most of my time actually dealing with. It's one of the commonest heart conditions, and I suppose about 20% of people can expect to have AF during their lifetimes, and 5% really have significant symptoms that need dealing with. So essentially what happens is the veins at the back of the heart, these in the left atrium, the pulmonary veins where blood comes back from the lungs, they've got a little sheath of muscle going into those veins, and that can set off ectopic beats. If the atria has been stretched or had some scarring, for example, due to just aging or high blood pressure, diabetes, or the like, those extra beats can actually trigger off a crazy self-perpetuating rhythm in the left atrium, which then sort of overwhelms the normal heartbeat, and that's conducted through to the main pumping chamber. And the person experiences the fast heartbeat, fast irregular heartbeat, and often symptoms such as shortness of breath, dizziness, palpitations, and it's more and more recognized. And the real worry actually about atrial fibrillation is the fact that then that top pumping chamber isn't working efficiently and blood can pool. And if blood pools, we all know that can cause a blood clot, and then a blood clot flying off can give bad things like a stroke. And so the number one thing with atrial fibrillation is to prevent a stroke.
Oh, okay, a stroke, okay.
Yeah. So that's the big worry with atrial fibrillation. Now, it doesn't mean that everyone with atrial fibrillation will get a stroke. Actually, it just changes your risk of getting a stroke. So if you're at very low risk of a stroke anyway, so say someone with in their 30s or 40s has atrial fibrillation, well, and they don't have diabetes or heart attack or any structural heart disease, for example, they'll have a very low baseline risk of having a stroke. And so their risk will be increased, but it will be increased by such a small amount that actually taking a blood thinner, the risks of the blood thinner medication will be more than the risk of the AF itself. Take on the flip side someone who's in their 70s, who's got diabetes, has high blood pressure. Well, they've got a very high risk of having a stroke, and so then that increase in risk with atrial fibrillation is a major deal. And a blood thinner, and sort of once a day tablet, will bring that down to the baseline, to their baseline risk.
So 20% of people, I think you said,
have atrial fibrillation at some point during their life. Yeah,
that's quite a lot.
It's so common.
So there's me and you. Yeah. There's the couple of guys over there, and one of the guys outside. One of us
will have atrial fibrillation at some point. Yeah.
And would it be true to say, because we're all living longer, some parts of our bodies will age well, some will have to play catch up. So my guess is that things like atrial fibrillation might become more common because of that.
Sure. I mean, there's two things going on. Number one, people are living longer. Number two, people are recognizing atrial fibrillation, and that's thanks to both medical education, recognizing that it's not only a problem, but it's also treatable. And number three, there's the recognition from smartwatches. So people are now able for the first time to properly diagnose themselves and bring themselves to medical attention after their Fitbit or Apple Watch or your cardiomobile device or Withing says that they really can that they can recognize their own atrial fibrillation.
Yes, but like the ectopic, they will feel this straight away. I mean, it'll be clear to them something's wrong. It will be probably quite distressing.
Yep, absolutely. Though actually a proportion of people, just to cut in there, a proportion of people really have atrial fibrillation but don't notice symptoms. It's quite a common thing that people just say, well, I feel older, feel like I have less energy than I did, but it's just aging. Turns out quite often it's not just aging, it's atrial fibrillation.
Right.
And with our better treatments for atrial fibrillation, which include not just prevention of stroke, but also we can get people back into normal rhythm with techniques such as cardioversion, or what I really do very commonly, catheter ablation, that can establish people back in normal rhythm. And people who, even when you ask them, they don't really recognize their symptoms, can often feel much better when they're in normal rhythm.
And you mentioned the risk assessment.
Yep.
Things like diabetes and so on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would increase the risk. So presumably, beforehand, there are things people can do in terms of lifestyle or whatever that will make it less likely. Or if it happens, less serious.
That's absolutely, that is correct. But actually, most of these things are not fully in control, and they tend to be in our own control, and they tend to be things that we want to do anyway. So protect against blood pressure, make sure that we keep our weight under control, eating healthily, so reducing the risk of diabetes. If you have, you can't help aging, which is one of the biggest risk factor, unfortunately. Well, not unfortunately. I mean, it's a good thing to age, much better than the alternative.
Well, becoming wiser is good.
Yeah, exactly.
Becoming decrepit, I'm not so sure.
No. But more years, the better.
So, up on the wall there, I've got live long, die young.
Yeah.
So if that's going to be more true for us today than it otherwise would be if we didn't take care, then the very things that we're advised to do anyway, when you boil it all away to actually then what it's going to prevent, or if it does happen, the effects will be less serious. This is actually one of them.
That's it's a great example. And the same thing with a range of cardiovascular health. So keeping exercise, keeping fit, and eating well, making sure one not just tries to avoid developing high blood pressure, but if it does start to be a thing, making sure it's treated, not just pretending it's not there. If people start to develop early signs of diabetes, which can happen even diabetes type 2, which can happen even for people who are otherwise trim and fit, making sure that their glucose control is really excellent, which has been made more and more possible by newer technologies. These things all reduce people's risks of not just things happening, but when they do happen, make it more amenable to great treatment.
Yes, yeah.